I'm Amanda Fauteux.
And I'm Miranda Bellamy, and we're interdisciplinary artists that live between Sackville within Mi'kma'ki and Ōtepoti Dunedin in Aotearoa, New Zealand.
One of the things that really motivates us as artists is looking at what is in front of us, and so we work in a site-specific way to see what's around us in our immediate environment, whether that's somewhere that we've been invited to do a project or somewhere that we live or spend time. So we're always looking at, what's around us and why is it there and what does it tell us. And so place is like where the work starts for us.
And I think that the significance of place was particularly key for our Wardian case, because in some ways it's addressing really broad conversations, and it was a way to narrow the scope for our vision perhaps. And it is such an interesting and curious microcosm, Kawa Island, that has been influenced by so many external individuals and ideologies. So it was a perfect place for us to go and work intensely for a short period of time, just intensely focusing on site-specific research and visiting significant locations around the island and getting to know the plant ecology of the island and filming a lot of footage and recording a lot of biodata information. Biodata sonification is a process through which you can record the slight electrical variation between 2 points on any living being, including plants. And what that looks like in the field is us taking a laptop computer and a small electronic unit which interfaces with that computer and the plant. And the way that it connects to the plant is with 2 sticky electrode probes. So think the same type of thing that you might find in a hospital setting. You might stick to your forehead or chest, and it's looking for that electrical data. And significantly, it doesn't sound like anything. It's just data points collected over time, and then we can interpret that data into sound or into carved rocks, as you see in Terrarium, or any manner of other outputs.
That's right, and so we use a device that brings that data into our computer as a MIDI signal, and from there we have the option to interpret it through either audio software or other ways of working with raw data. Yeah.
And that interpretation, I think, is a significant part of our process. So we're not purporting to capture this plant communication in an unfiltered way. Instead, it's a process of collaboration, as we describe it, whereby we're thinking about the provenance and history and characteristics of that plant and our experience collaborating with that plant, and then adding, with creative license, we're assigning sounds to that data.
One thing that we don't do is manipulate the data in a way, like we assign instruments or sounds or apply like digital processes to the data, but we don't work with the data to compose things that sound musical or not, or look aesthetically pleasing or not. The data just is what it is, and then we work with it from there.
One way of thinking about it, perhaps, is the plant has its fingers on the keyboard, and we're deciding what sound that keyboard is emitting.
So in the same process as with our works that use audio soundscapes, we went to the now historic Picard Quarry here, and we used the process of biodata sonification to record electrical activity from the plants that are there now. And using that data, we developed line drawings. So rather than working with it as a basis for an audio soundscape, we used the points and connected them together to make line drawings, and it is those line drawings that we then had carved into the stone.
And the Pickard Quarry is kind of an interesting ecological anomaly, which interests us in that it's a microclimate because of the excavation that has historically occurred. So you'll find plants there that you wouldn't find within the broader area around Sackville.
That's right, and it's also, like many places that have been intervened upon, it has plants that may have been there forever and plants that have come in from maybe nearby gardens and introduced in other ways. So it's got a really interesting mix of plants that really tell the history of the place and what's happened there. We live in a mediated world, and our worldviews are shaped by so many things, and one of the common conceptions about plants is that there's weeds and there's plants that are supposed to be there, but plants, especially in the context of Aotearoa, New Zealand, and I think it applies here as well, plants that are introduced that might be invasive, that might be causing ecological problems, didn't walk there themselves, so there's some human accountability that is an important lens, I think, when we're looking at plants. And so the ideal collaborator for me is just the plants that are there and why they're there, and I just find that really interesting. What about you?
Well, I think also it's really easy to be drawn to those plants that are fabulous and floral and extravagant, but we try to look with a really open mind, and we try to look in a really whole way. And I think there are really amazing discoveries to be made in the margins and in the undergrowth, and perhaps that process of identifying and seeing what is traditionally overlooked is a thread within our practice generally. So turning rocks over and looking through the weeds and the undergrowth and the grass, those plants are all really interesting and have significant stories to tell as well. Perhaps part of the magic of the framework that exists within our projects here is that it doesn't stop when we put the camera down, and it really changes the way that we see and experience the world. And so we're much more interested in plant identification and just try to understand the environment within which we exist in a different way, which is part of a result of the methodologies that we've designed to realize these projects.
Yeah, I think through listening to plants and by centering them in our work, we're offering an opportunity to observe a little bit differently, and maybe to take ourselves out of the center of the world and see something else that sort of could be in the center instead, or that maybe there's no center, and that there's sort of more going on than what we might think when we're on our regular daily routine or out on a walk. And I think too that listening to plants is good practice in overall empathy and just understanding where we are and sharing our space with others.